Sir, please begin.
Okay. So, very good morning to all of you. Today we have a very distinguished personality, Dr. T.S. Subbalakshmi ma'am. Ma'am is serving as an assistant professor in Department of Commerce, Sri Param Kalyani College, Tamil Nadu.
दिखाओ जरा मोबाइल.
Ma'am has 11 years of teaching experience as an assistant professor.
आपको इस सेमेस्टर में यही पढ़ना है.
Furthermore, ma'am have authored total 7 books on various subjects like business communication, human resource management, capital market, industrial laws, and etc. Ma'am is also a PhD guide, and recently one of her students has been awarded the PhD degree. She is also associated with the various national and international committee as a committee members. Along with this, ma'am has published 19 research papers in national and international journals. Last but not least, in 2022, ma'am have been awarded as a Women Transforming Nation 2022 by the Women Leads 2030. So we are welcoming you, ma'am, in this session. So now the platform is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice introduction. Already my screen has been shared, I think, isn't it? So yes, shall I start my presentation?
Yes, ma'am. You can start.
Okay, thank you. So good morning to you all. So steps for effective thesis writing. So what is research? Research has been comprises of defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses or suggested solutions, collecting, organizing, and evaluating the data, making deductions and making conclusions at last, carefully testing the conclusions to determine whether they fit the formulated hypothesis. This is the literal definition that we can see in every books and in internet. This is the literal definition for research, isn't it? So likewise, in this definition, we are ordering all the aspects and we are collecting all the aspects based on this definition, and we are going to do a thesis. If it is a thesis or if it is a research paper, what are the things that has been collected? What are the things has we have to do in making a very valid and effective thesis? So in this webinar, I am going to speak what are the things has to be done for an effective thesis. So what is the attribute to a successful thesis? So demonstrate authority in a candidate's field and shows evidence of command of knowledge in relevant fields. A good thesis shows that a candidate has a thorough grasp of the appropriate methodological techniques and aware of limitations. Apart from arts, science, whatever discipline they may be, if a thesis has been written by a scholar, it should depict their knowledge and it should depict their thorough knowledge about that subject. That is the thing. So that everyone expects from a scholar who has written the thesis. Demonstrate an ability to communicate research findings. What you have written in your thesis, that you should be able to communicate very effectively in an effective way. So in your thesis, you have proven an hypothesis or you have said an message that you have to communicate very effectively before the panel. That is the matter. So what are the views of the examiners? We can see sufficient familiarity and understanding the concerned topic. The examiner will view whether your thesis has sufficient familiarity and you are having the sufficient understanding about the topic. Does it provide a sufficient comprehensive investigation of the topic? If you have written a thesis in a particular topic, the examiner should view whether it is whether there is comprehensive investigation has been done or not. he is going to evaluate. Are the methods or techniques adapted appropriate to the subject matter, and are they properly justified and applied? Whether all the hypotheses are being tested, whether your objective is correct or not, it is whether related to the thesis or not, that has to be evaluated. All the results and suitability set out and accompanied by adequate interpretation and conclusion. Whether the thesis has adequate interpretation and conclusion. How the research questions are tested, proved. What are the research questions that has been given in your thesis or in your research paper are answered effectively? That has to be tested and proved. Does the thesis as a whole constitute a substantive original contribution? That is the important thing. Whether it is an original contribution by the scholar to knowledge in the subject area with which it deals. So what are the chapters to be included literally in thesis or in a research paper? You can take both for the thesis or a research paper. So the title, the abstract with the keywords, introduction, statement of the problem, objectives, methodology, research gap, limitations. So the title and abstract with keywords are the title page. Introduction comprises of the research design, and the research design comprises of this statement of the problem, objectives, methodology, and all, collectively known as research design. So then the most important part, review of literature, analysis and discussion, major findings and suggestions, whether the thesis has the social relevance, conclusion, and your bibliography. So the first thing you have to do before formulation of a title, first, a research problem should be identified. A scholar, one who is going to write the thesis or one who is going to do their PhD, first identify a research problem, formulate a research problem. Where the research problem can be searched. It can be identified based on the area of the interest of the scholar. That should not be forced by the guide. So what is their convenience? That should be decided by the scholar itself. The problems, it can be based on the problem on social relevance or their personal experience, or by go through the research article, by go through their peer team, or whatever it may be. The problem should be identified by the scholar correctly, and whether the problem can be converted into a research problem, that can be chosen by a guide. So title selection and finalization. What is the appropriate title has to be selected for the research. So selection of the research area and the apt title for the research, because why I am giving importance to title. The title depicts everything in your research work. What is the title given in your research work? That has been closely connected with the objectives, and the objectives formulated and the research problem formulated, that has been closely related to the questionnaire. So these three have very close connection. These three have a very close correlation that we should understood. So the title of the research or the research paper or the title of the thesis. So careful investigation regarding the research area. So how far we narrow down the title, and the thesis should be qualitative. The topic should help to complete the researcher productively. Here I am giving the example, customer relationship management of banks in Coimbatore. So this title is not a fulfilled one, isn't it? So if we give these type of titles, customer relationship of banks. Banks means what are the banks has been included in your thesis? What is to be what are the banks has to be included in your thesis, and what is the area has to be included in your thesis? If the thesis instead of it in Coimbatore or in South Tamil Nadu or in North Gujarat, something like that, the area has not been narrowed down. So how far you are narrowed down your area, the thesis has given a very good quality. So data availability and a review of literature. So confirmation is necessary, whether the data availability before the selection of the topic. Before you select a topic, whether the data can be collected or not, whether the population is known or unknown, and the data can be collected by the researcher very effectively or not. That has to be decided by the researcher, because many scholars have selected a title depending upon their non-availability of data. They drop the thesis work and select another topic. So this should be avoided before the confirmation of the title. Depending upon this title, whether the data is available for the thesis or not, that should be confirmed. So before that, the review of literature review is necessary. So the review of literature has to be studied in your thesis 3 times. In your thesis work, the review of literature has to be studied 3 times. One is pilot study. Pilot study means before the work has been started, it is a test study. So for that, review of literature has to be studied. All the previous references regarding the title has to be reviewed, whether there is a previous reviews or not. That has to be referred before the selection of the title. So after reviewing the literature, previous literature, the title has to be finalized. The title has to be finalized depending upon the 3 things: whether the data has been available for that particular title, whether there is a proper review of literature for that title, or whether there is an applicability of the research work for that particular title. And the title, please confirm whether there is a very broad topics. Avoid the broad topics and avoid the very vast topics. That should be avoided. The narrow down topics are given the exact research results. So that is my personal experience. So after finalizing the title, you should write the synopsis and factors of the thesis. What are the variables you have to be, it has to be analyzed for that research that has to be decided by the scholar and the guide. So determinants of the objectives of the study. So coming to the objectives, what are the variables that has been discussed in the research that has to be discussed? The tentative objectives may be prepared, and at the stage of preparation of synopsis, it must be connected with the title. The objectives are always connected with the title. This is a very important thing. The examiner will view the title, the objectives, the questionnaire, and the analysis. These 4 parts are very, very important in your study. The title, objectives, questionnaire, and the analysis. So these 4 should correlate with each other. So you should not give a common thing as subjective. You should not give generalized statement as subjectives. So more care should be taken in case of writing the objectives. So suitable modifications may be made before preparing the questionnaire. So prepare a tentative objective, and for that objective, the questionnaire may be prepared. The objectives must be brief and precise. You should not go long statements in the objectives. 5 or 6 objectives is enough for a thesis. 5 or 6 or 7 maybe, depending upon the title of the thesis. The more important thing, it should correlate with the title. That is the thing. The action verbs like assess, determine, compare, verify, analyze may be used to construct the objective. So always it should not like be a format to study, to analyze. That is not a necessary thing, but we can use the common verbs or action verbs like to assess in our study, to determine in our study, to compare these 2 variables. So these we can give us to construct the objectives. So unwanted statements and unnecessary generalized statements and the declaration of facts must be avoided in while designing the objectives. You should not give any generalized statement and unnecessary things in the objectives. Whether it has been given in the objectives, it should be proved. That is the thing. If you give a thing in your objective, it should be proved. So don't give any unnecessary statements in the objectives. The more most important thing, it should correlate with the questionnaire you are going to prepare. So with the given objectives, if you are having 6 or 7 objectives in your hand, very perfectly designed with your title, you can construct the questionnaire based on that objectives. So questionnaire construction. So the half finished thesis is well designed questionnaire. If a questionnaire is constructed in a very designed or very definite manner, the thesis has been completed. A half thesis work has been completed. So what are the things has been given in the questionnaire has to be proved. A very important part in the research is questionnaire construction. So many scholars don't know how to construct a questionnaire very effectively, because the unwanted statements and unwanted questions are there in the questionnaire. So the questionnaire should be very precise. It should answer the question, what is the research problem, what is the research title, that has to be justified in your questionnaire. So depending upon the study, your researcher may decide the type of questionnaires to be prepared, whether an interview schedule or open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, that and all decided by the scholar depending upon their convenience. So you can divide the questionnaire into 2 or 3 parts. The first part contains demographic informations like age, gender, income, educational qualification, and all. It is common to all, isn't it? So the second part contains the analysis. It is deeply going to the study matter. So that has to be divided into section wise, and it has to be, you can use a Likert scale or 5-point scale in the questionnaire, and ranking has been used. So whatever method, whatever tool you are going to use in your research study, the questionnaire has to be constructed in that particular way. If you are going to use Garrett ranking, or if you are going to use ANOVA, so like that, 5-point scale method has been used properly in a questionnaire. So what are the factors? What are the factors that you are going to analyze in your thesis? So that factors should be converted into a statements in a 5-point scale in the construction of questionnaires. So that variables should be analyzed and proved statistically. So that is the important part in your questionnaire. So in your objectives, study the variables, and that variables has to be converted into the questionnaire, and that questionnaire has to be collected in the form of data, and that data has to be analyzed into a proper analysis and a proper interpretation, and the suggestions and conclusion based on that analysis. So this will depict you how the construction of the questionnaire is important. If anything wrong in the questionnaire, you should not change the total analysis, isn't it? So careful observation has to be made while constructing the questionnaire. Before constructing a questionnaire, title and objectives should be carefully inspected, and with that objectives, the questionnaire can be constructed. So unwanted questions, yes or no, unwanted questions has to be avoided, isn't it? So if the questionnaire is so lengthy, nobody will interested to fill that questionnaire. So don't ask unwanted questions or unwanted yes or no questions in your questionnaire. If what is related to your study, what are the questions related to your study, that should be asked in the form of a 5-point scale or in the form of statements. One more thing, positive statements and negative statements. Coming to the positive statements, if a statement contains 10 or so if a heading contains 10 or 15 statements, don't mix and match the positive and the negative statements. So you know very well about the 5-point scale. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are the marks given for the questionnaires, isn't it? So if a negative statement interferes with the positive statement, the marks will be changing, isn't it? So don't mix and match the positive and negative statements in your questionnaire. So put positive statements only for a analysis. For it's a separate 5-point scale, and if the negative statements are to be included, put a separate heading for the negative statements, and you can analyze whatever you want. Okay. The final editing must be done to eliminate the unwanted questions. Finally, you are constructing a questionnaire, and you must edit the unwanted questionnaires finally, so the questionnaire has been done very effectively. So coming to the very important part, review of literature. Simultaneously, you have been ready with the questionnaire, and you have started the data collection. That work has to be done simultaneously. Parallelly, review of literature work has to be done by the researcher. Then what is mean by review of literature? Nowadays, scholars misunderstand the information. A review of literature is cutting and pasting the review of literature in another thesis. No, this is not like that. If you have been done in that manner, it is like plagiarism, and it has to be severely punished. So original works, the examiner will view the and giving the marks for your thesis or a research paper. This is for original work. Your original work has to be done. So what are the aspects for the review of literature has to be considered while taking the review. So while taking the review, many of the scholars asking me the questions, ma'am, you are continuously saying what are the topics that has to be, if the review for the topics has to be collected for a review of literature. If I select a new topic, what I go for review? Why I should select a new topic? Why can I select a new topic? They are asking continuously. Yes, you can select a new topic. That for review of literature is very minimal. In a thesis, we should include 80 or 70 reviews, isn't it? So 80 or 70 reviews is more worthy for a thesis, isn't it? 40 or 30 reviews will down your thesis reputation. So if you have to collect more reviews, so split the thesis or split the title into 2 or 3 parts. So depending upon the title, a review of literature can be divided into parts. So here I am giving an example, customer relationship management among commercial banks. So depending upon the title, you can divide the title, customer relationship among commercial banks. In that particular title, you can get some reviews, isn't it? So keep aside. Then customer relationship management for banks, common, not commercial. In all banks you can take. Then customer relationship management in any sector, not only banks, service sector or transport sector, insurance sector, like that. And so customer relationship management in any sector. So depending upon the title, depending upon the division of the title, you can get more reviews. So in your review of literature chapter, you can put headings, national reviews, international reviews. Under these headings, the customer relationship management among banks. So for that, I have these kind of reviews. Then customer relationship management among commercial banks and all, I have these kind of reviews. You can list like that. So divide your topic, whether the topic is new or old, doesn't matter. So if you see, after COVID, there are many research papers published, many research topics selected depending upon the COVID situation, isn't it? So whether they can get a previous review of literature? No. So far we cannot see the COVID type of pandemic in the past. So we cannot get the COVID reviews. So what they can do is they can divide the title. They can divide the title and collect the reviews. We can get more than 80 or 100 reviews for a thesis very easily in this manner. So I would recommend to my scholars to collect the review of literature in this manner only. So reference can be done in thesis, dissertations, book, and research articles. So thesis has to be done first, and dissertations, books, and research articles. So in olden days, the people has to visit many universities and many colleges. In that universities, they can refer the thesis and sit down and hours they would write in a paper by referring the thesis. That and all very tedious work that I have done while completing my PhD work. But in this modern world and in this computer world, the work has been done very quickly with the effect of the modern research tools that you are using now, modern e-resources in open access that are available in open access. But the only thing is that e-resources has to be used in a very particular way, that you should not copy the research paper or you should not copy the thesis from the original work of one and paste in your work. So what is the thing has to be done while writing a review of literature? You must refer the abstract part. So it the review of literature writing contains 3 parts, 3 or 4 parts. Collection, you have to collect a review, you have to read their papers, you have to summarize the papers, and you have to paraphrase the papers. So review topic is a very big topic. So if you take a review of literature, it will go for a 1 hour session, another 1 hour session. So I don't want go more in that. So I think I would like to give an advice how to write a review. So collection of a research paper, reading of a research paper. After reading properly, you have to summarize the research paper. What is the summarization process? So you should, while reading, you should not read all the aspects in a thesis. If a research paper contains 8 or 9 pages, you should not, it is very difficult to read 8 or 9 pages in the thesis, isn't it? So for that, the abstract part, you should read the abstract part, analysis, findings and suggestion part is enough for reading a research paper. Similarly for the PhD thesis also. So what is the conclusion given? What is the analysis pattern they are given, and what are the findings and suggestions they are given in that thesis? So that has to be summarized in a particular Word document. You have to copy paste in their findings and suggestions in a particular Word document, and you should organize in the resource manager libraries using Mendeley and Google Scholar. Recently published and perish softwares are also Zotero also there in for the resource management, isn't it? So by using that, if you see a research paper, put a research paper and save the research paper relating to the title, RP1, RP2, RP3, like that. Make a folder properly in that libraries, and so save your research paper in that particular manner. As customer relationship management is your research title, CRM RP1, CRM RP2. So this will not confuse you. Too many research paper in one folder will confuse the reader, and they will absolutely don't have any idea about the reading. So if a research paper has been collected, it has to be properly organized in this manner. Keep a folder for that. Give a proper heading and save in a proper format. So after that, when you get time, you can open and read the papers, and you can summarize the papers in a very effective manner. After summarization, you can change or transform the sentences. That is called paraphrasing. So paraphrasing technique, is there any disturbance in my audio? You can tell me. Is there any disturbance in my audio? Is there any disturbance in my audio? Am I audible to all? participants, I am audible to all. Am I audible to all?
Yes, madam, you are audible.
Yes. So collection, reading, summarization, and paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is nothing but transformation of sentences. So how to transform a sentence? So in English, we know that how to convert a simple sentence into a compound and complex sentences, isn't it? So by using that technique, you can transform the sentence given in that particular research paper, and you should not copy the same sentence with the same keywords. You should not change the keywords, but you can transform the sentences without changing the keywords. That is the thing. So that is the correct and proper way of writing a review of literature. So paraphrasing technique. Now paraphrasing technique can be done in online also using the Quillbot and all. We are using for a paraphrase, a rewriter and all. It's available in online only. So if you don't want to do it manually, you can copy it and paste it in a Quillbot writer, and you can convert the sentences in whatever pattern you want. So for that only, in that pattern only, the review of literature can be done, should be done. So coming to the research design. So the research design should contain all the material facts relating to the research. So the statement of the problem. What is your research problem? That must be given in your statement of the problem. The statement of the problem should be very precise, in a very precise manner, and it should not contain unwanted statements. By reading the statement of the problem, the examiner or a reader of your thesis should understand what is the problem, what is the research problem is analyzed or is discussed in this thesis. That is the answer for the statement of the problem. Many scholars would write unwanted stories in the research problem. That is not a proper thing. What are the research questions you have? That has to be listed properly in the statement of the problem. What is your exact research problem? That has to be given. So objectives, I have already told about the objectives. So objectives is a very good depictor of your thesis. So then methodology. Methodology, both the primary data and the secondary data. The primary data means what you have analyzed in your by using your primary data. What are the things has been used as a secondary data that you can give in the methodology part, and what are the statistical tools has to be used or has been used in your thesis. That has to be constructed after the analysis part, I think. So the research design can be, these things are can be constructed after your analysis part. Then only you can able to write what are the tools has been used. So in the starting point, we cannot depict the tools, or we cannot decide what are the tools has to be used, isn't it? So the number of samples should be determined. So what type of sample you are using in your thesis. So that and all should be discussed. And the most important thing is the limitations. If you have any limitations in your thesis work, that has to be mentioned very correctly and very properly to avoid unnecessary questions in the viva. So based on the title or based on the objectives, they can raise many questions, isn't it? So that you can avoid, whether you can limit your study. For example, household articles related thesis. If you refer to a household articles, or if you refer to a FMCG products, you can see many products, isn't it? So the product line and the product diversification, we can see many products. The list is very big. So you cannot analyze all the products. So you can limit the research within the limit. So that limitation should be prescribed in your thesis in the limitations side. So I limit my thesis with these products. I have selected only 15 products. I have selected only 20 type of products. You can limit your thesis. that limitations will avoid unnecessary questions raised in the viva. So framing, coming to the hypothesis. So many scholars are doing a mistake. The more the hypothesis, the more the valid thesis will be. That is not like that, students, that is not like that. The hypothesis is a tentative statement used to prove the relationship between, or a significant difference between one variable and another variable, whether it is dependent and independent variable, isn't it? You know the meaning of the hypothesis. So the hypothesis must be framed in relation with the thesis. You can compare the variables. We can compare the two variables, whether there is a significant difference between these two. So don't go 50 hypotheses, 60 hypotheses are are seeing in the thesis. So why there are long hypothesis statements are to be proved? So limit your hypothesis statement. So there is no need to prove a very long hypothesis. So limit your hypothesis. After finalizing the research problem, the objective hypothesis may be framed. The dependent and independent variable must be identified, and in that a comparison also, what is the thing that is necessary for the title, and that should do good for the title, that should justify your title or justify your research problem. That and all should be taken in your hypothesis. Unwanted statements, unwanted comparisons are to be avoided. So why I am saying this is, so unwanted statements, if there is any unwanted hypothesis or unwanted statements, that if that statements are taken as a discussion, it should take your viva in a negative sense. So the scholar will feel a negative projection. So that can be avoided. So frame statements or hypotheses that reflect a prediction and are testable. So what has to be tested in your study, that should be given as a hypothesis. Unwanted statements and unwanted comparisons are not necessary for a thesis. The results of the hypothesis testing directly help to answer the research questions and draw conclusions for the study. So framing of the hypothesis. The hypothesis should be precise and clear, and more confused hypotheses are to be avoided. Don't confuse the statements in framing the hypothesis, and don't compare the dependent variables in the hypothesis. The dependent and independent variables should be compared with the hypothesis. The hypothesis should be testable with primary or secondary data. The results of the hypothesis testing should address the study aim and objectives adequately. So data verification and validation. So the data has been collected based on your very strong questionnaire you have constructed. So it should ensure the validity and the data. Unwanted questionnaires may be unwanted questionnaires, unfilled questionnaires, or wrong filled questionnaires are to be eliminated before the analysis. And you can say in your thesis also, I have collected this much of questionnaires. This much of questionnaires have some errors, and I should retain. I will retain this questionnaires, and I done my analysis. So these are the various softwares: Excel, SPSS, AMOS, Strata, eViews, SAS, Visual PLS, and MATLAB, and all used commonly by the researchers for their data analysis. So coming to the analysis and interpretation part. So in many theses, I can see the interpretation is very non-understandable manner. Why they are writing in that manner, I don't know. But the interpretation should depict the meaning of the table. That's all. So when an examiner, if he is go through your thesis, he should not go through the table. He will go through your interpretation. What is written in the interpretation? That he must be able to study without looking your table. So there is unnecessary waste of the time by looking after the table and checking the table and interpretation. That is unnecessary waste of time. So if an examiner should go through an interpretation, it must be very precise and it must be very clear. That is the correct sense of interpretation. The interpretation should be very clear. There should not be any confusion in the interpretation. Many scholars are doing this type of mistakes. They are assuming that they are writing standard interpretations, but that and all not necessary. The interpretation should be written in a very simple English, and it should understand the meaning and it should depict the meaning of the table. That is the purpose of the interpretation as far as I am concerned. So the data analyzed should be tabulated in a proper format. Interpretation should be precise and a very clear manner, should be written in a manner to explain the table. The table, what table that has been given, that you should clearly explain in a interpretation. So it should include a final statement that which factor or variable comes in a majority or which factor is an influencing factor, isn't it? Whether we have analyzing an ANOVA or we have analyzing a MANOVA table or AMOS, whatever table or whatever analysis we give in your thesis, the conclusion, the what you are giving in the table and which variable dominates in that table, that has to be cleared, that has to be clearly given in the last line of the interpretation. So these last lines are collectively written in your findings. So major findings, suggestions, and conclusions. So based on the interpretation, what is a dominating factor in all the table? So I am orderly saying all the things, what are the requirements for the thesis. First, you have to define a research problem. Title, the title should correlate with the objectives. The objectives should be correlated with the questionnaire, and the questionnaire should help to the analysis, and analysis must be explained with the proper interpretation. In that interpretation, which variable dominates and which variable is not influencing should be mentioned and very clearly in the last section. So these influencing variables or non-influencing variables are to be collected and depicted as findings. So in to write findings, many scholars would copy and paste the interpretation. No, it is not needed. So what are the conclusion you have arrived in that particular table? That has to be written as findings. What are the conclusions you arrived in that particular table? For example, if it is a gender table, male, female classification is given. Whether male is dominating one or female is dominating one, what percentage by what percentage they are dominating. So that result must be taken to the finding. Majority is male. So that's all. Only one line will do. So why? What is the purpose of copying your interpretation to be in findings? So that's all not necessary. So it will get a thesis very confused. Your thesis should be very clear about your findings. So based on the interpretation, major findings in your study should be fine-tuned. Based on the findings in your research, suitable suggestions should be drawn. So based on your findings only, we can able to draw your suggestions. While drawing your suggestions, don't go deeply or don't go any generalized statements or don't give any generalized statements. Many scholars I can see in their viva also, what are the, if an examiner, external examiner asking question, what are the suggestions you have given? So they are continuously saying the generalized suggestions, that and all not asked for your thesis, isn't it? What you have given as the suggestions in your thesis based on your findings and analysis, that is the question. So you are analyzed your thesis using some tools, and you have interpreted the thesis, and you have found out many things
Based on your findings, what are the suggestions can be drawn? That is the correlation between the findings and suggestions. You should write very apt suggestions based on your study only. Your suggestions do not go deviated. So generalized suggestions you cannot give. If it is a public talk, you can say your personal suggestion. But in a thesis, as far as thesis is concerned, it is only based on your study, what you have done and what you have been analyzed and what you have been interpreted. In that, what you have found out, and in that your findings, what you are found lacking, that has to be eradicated by using your suggestions. So suggestions is very, very important. When writing a suggestions, don't go for a generalized suggestion, or don't go for a other suggestions also. In many theses, the suggestions part also being get copied. So that and all you should avoid. The research scholars should avoid. So find out what are the variables that are dominated and what are the variables that are least dominated. And depending upon the variables, you can generate your suggestion. The suggestions must be generated, not copied or not generalized. So conclusions should be clear and based on your analysis and findings. So say your own view and conclude the study. Don't say the generalized view and conclude your study. So whenever you go through your research problem, there is a scope for further research, isn't it? So that must be depicted at the last part of your thesis. Then social relevance. This question also will be asked in many viva. What are the why your thesis is connected? In what way your thesis is connected with the society? If your thesis is connected with the society, in what way it has the social relevance? So say about the future scope in your research. This will help other scholars also. So scholars looking for prospective scholars, they are also have the room to research a new topics based on your domain, isn't it? So mention how your study is socially connected and how it would be useful for the society. So we are coming to the annexures and attachments, very strong bibliography. There are many styles depending upon the university rules and regulations. So APA style, Chicago style, MLA style, isn't it? So whatever maybe the format, you have to be collect the reviews and references and change the format. You can change the format in Google Scholar. You can change the format in Zotero, Mendeley. All the reference manager tools have the option to change the references style, isn't it? So if you have collected the review of literature in a proper manner, this bibliography has not much work, not much manual work. You should not, or you cannot type all these in a manually. It should be computerized, and you can automatically you can convert into a different styles of and different formats. So bibliography is a very easy one. The questionnaire has to be attached, glossary, difficult words. For difficult words, you must give operational definitions, and you must give meanings for that, then abbreviations. So far I have presented what are the points that are to be noted for effective thesis writing in my perspective. So hope that you have enjoyed this webinar. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I thank the department HOD and other members to conduct this webinar very successfully. Thank you all. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Yes, ma'am. So few of our students have one or two questions related to the
Yes, sir.
research. So I would like to call Hatim for his question.
Yes, sir.
Please, Hatim. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Ma'am, can you tell us something about Module 1? Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, can you share some information about Module 1?
Sir, I can't hear you. Can you speak clearly?
Ma'am, can you share some information about Module 1, which we will be preparing ahead?
Module 1.
Yes, he is asking about the chapter number 1. That
Yes.
if he wants to prepare the chapter number 1 in the
chapter
thesis.
number 1. Yes.
How
I
we can
understand.
write the chapter number 1.
The chapter number 1 is comprises of, already I have given in my presentation, these are the chapters included in the thesis, isn't it? So the title, abstract with keywords, introduction and design of the study. That I will say chapter wise, I will say the chapterization, you can note it down. The first chapter comprises of introduction and design of the study. This is the first chapter you are you have to give in your thesis as a first chapter, introduction and design of the study. In all universities, it is common. So there is no change. There is no chance to change in that. So in the introduction chapter, you have to give introduction about your common topic. In the research design, these statement of problem, objectives, methodology, research gap, limitations and all, you can collect the information and you can give it as a research design. Then the second chapter comprises of review of literature, previous year, depending upon the previous year study. The third chapter is about profile of the study. What is the thing that you are going to analyze? That titles theory background, whether it is customer relationship management or is a stress management and all. So related to that theoretical framework of that study, you have to give in the third chapter. So theoretical framework means sometimes it can add the pages to your work. So you can give whatever you want in as a whatever you want to add as a theoretical background, you can add in that particular thesis. So the fourth chapter will comprises of the analysis and interpretation, and based on the length of the thesis, it can be subdivided into two. Analysis and interpretation is the fourth chapter generally we are giving. So if there is any subdivisions or if there is any separate analysis has to be given, that can be given as a fifth chapter also. It can be extended to as a fifth chapter also. So part 4 is analysis, and if you want to extend the analysis, it can be given in a part 5 also, and part 6. Yes.
Yes, thank you, madam.
Suggestions.
Yes. One more question is from Rincy.
Yes, sir.
Rincy, now you can ask the question.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Please.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, ma'am. My question is, how can we do a literature review, or what are the methods to do?
Ma'am, can you say loudly? I can't hear you.
Ma'am, can you tell me the methods for the literature review?
Literature review.
She is asking about the methods of literature review.
Yes, I am already saying that literature review is a very big topic. If you take that, it will go as an 1 hour session. So literature review can be taken by dividing the title into 2 or 3 parts. By dividing the title, you can take the reviews, arrange it in a proper manner. You can collect the research articles and arrange it in a proper manner. Give a name for your research paper or a thesis and save it in a particular folder. That that this will help you to read the research paper whenever you are free, collect the research paper, read the research paper, summarize the articles in a particular word file, and after summarization, it has to be paraphrased. Then only it will be able to write in your thesis. Otherwise, copying and pasting will not do an effective review of literature. So how to paraphrase and all, you can use Quillbot, Quillbot. This is a free software available on internet. By using the Quillbot, you can arrange your review of literature very effectively. And simultaneously, you can use Zotero, Mendeley softwares for using or keeping the research articles in your library.
Okay, thank you so much, madam. We have another questions from the Ajit Chaudhary, one of our students. Ajit, you can ask your question. Please unmute your mic, Ajit. Ajit, your mic is mute. Yes. Now you can ask the question.
So my question is, what type of content must not be avoided while making the research report?
What type of
Content must not be.
content?
Ajit, can you repeat the question, please? Speak loudly.
My question is, what type of content must not be avoided while making the research report?
Whether you feel what is the title, what is related to the title, that content should alone be taken for a research writing. So unwanted contents irrelevant to the research article or irrelevant content that does not relate to the title should be avoided. That is the thing has to be you concentrate while writing your research paper or thesis. Don't give unnecessary long content for your in your research thesis. So what is the title? What are your objectives? So the content has to be limited based on these two, title and objectives. If you need it, if it is needed for your thesis based on your own objectives, that content has to be included in your thesis. If it don't justify your objectives, that should be avoided. That's all. The content has to be decided by the scholar itself, depending upon the objectives and the need of the study.
Okay, so thank you so much, madam, for giving the answers to our students. And now I would like to call Mr. Mehul Vadgama for the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, madam. On behalf of Padul University, Faculty of Commerce, from the students and staff member, I feel glad to give you a vote of thanks. I will like to thank today's guest, T.S. Subbalakshmi madam, for on our invitation you came here and you have delivered a wonderful session on research writing and the thesis. We are mainly thankful because our last year students have a project work and SIP report they have to prepare this semester. And because of your, this session, they learn a lot and even they ask lots of questions to you. We are thankful to you came here and for your invitation. The information which we have shared, even we have learned lots of things and our students also clarify their doubts. So thank you so much, madam, for being here and coming to a Padul University webinar session. We are thankful from Padul University Faculty of Commerce and from our student side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Knowledge is sharing. So if you have any doubt or if your students have any doubt, give my mail ID. They can ask me any questions or if they have any doubts, they can ask me. I am ready to help them. Thank you for my for your patient listening, and hope this webinar is useful to your students. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, it's really a wonderful session, madam, because because through this webinar, we have gained a lot of knowledge regarding the research. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, madam.
So now it's my humble request